My family told me my sister had 10 days before she and her children lost their home. They didn't ask me in private. They waited until Sunday dinner. Megan was crying. Her children were watching cartoons in the next room. Then my mother looked at the inheritance Uncle Ray had left me and said, "Ray left you money at the right time." By the next morning, I was sitting inside a bank office. Ray's money, my name, my signature line, and my entire family was waiting for me to pick up the pen. Daniel Reed was 32 when Uncle Ray died. By then, he already knew his role in the family. Megan broke things. Daniel made them workable again. When Daniel was 17, he got accepted into a summer engineering program 2 hours away. Ray offered to drive him on the first day. Daniel had the forms printed, the schedule taped above his desk, and a small bag packed by the door. Then Megan crashed her car. No one was seriously hurt, but the car was gone, and Megan needed rides to work. Susan sat Daniel at the kitchen table. "Your sister cannot lose this job." Daniel said the program was only 6 weeks. Greg looked tired. "You are smart. You will get other chances." So Daniel stayed. Every morning that summer, he drove Megan to work before his own shift. At the end of August, Megan told relatives she had survived one of the hardest seasons of her life. Susan cried and said she was proud of her. No one mentioned the program Daniel had missed. That was how it worked. Megan's problems became emergencies. Daniel's losses became maturity. Years later, Susan had surgery. Megan promised to help around the house for 2 weeks. By the third day, Daniel was buying groceries, picking up prescriptions, cooking dinner, and driving Susan to follow-up appointments. Megan took one photo beside their mother's couch and posted it online. "Family first." Susan commented with 3 heart emojis. Daniel saw the post while standing in line at the pharmacy with his mother's medication in his hand. Another time, Daniel saved for a used motorcycle he wanted to rebuild with Ray. It was not expensive, it was not fancy, it was just something that belonged to him. Then Megan fell behind on daycare. Greg said, "It is different for her, she has children." Daniel gave up the money. 2 weeks later, Megan posted photos from a weekend trip with the kids. Susan called it healing. Ray saw the pattern clearly. One Thanksgiving, Daniel cooked half the meal because Susan said Megan was overwhelmed. He peeled potatoes, picked up rolls, fixed the garbage disposal, set the table, and washed pans before guests arrived. Megan came 40 minutes late with a store-bought pie. Susan hugged her like she had crossed a battlefield. "You made it," she said. "I am so proud of you." Daniel stood at the sink with soap on his sleeves. Ray looked from Megan to Daniel, then back to Susan. For the first time, Daniel saw anger on his uncle's face. Ray was Susan's older brother, divorced, no children. Sharp humor, rough hands, and a garage that smelled like oil, coffee, and old metal. Daniel spent Saturdays there. They rebuilt a motorcycle Ray swore would run again if they both lived long enough. Ray did not give speeches. He watched. One Saturday, Megan called while Daniel was in the garage. Her car insurance had lapsed. She needed money before Monday. Daniel accidentally left the phone on speaker. Susan's voice came through next. "Just help your sister. You do not have kids. You can recover faster." Daniel reached for the phone, embarrassed. Ray stopped him. "No," Ray said quietly. "Let it play." For the first time, someone else heard it exactly as Daniel heard it. When the call ended, Ray wiped his hands on a rag. "When Megan breaks a plate," he said, "they hand you the broom and call it family." Daniel tried to laugh. He could not. Ray did not push. He just wrote something in the black ledger he kept near the workbench. Daniel thought it was a repair note. Ray kept records of everything: parts, receipts, money borrowed, money returned, things people promised when they thought nobody would write them down. When Ray died, Daniel did not fall apart loudly. He took 2 days off work, cleaned the garage, kept one old wrench from the toolbox. At the funeral, Megan cried into Susan's shoulder. Relatives brought her tissues and plates of food. They told Daniel he was strong. He hated that word. Strong usually meant nobody planned to comfort him. 2 weeks later, the estate attorney told Daniel that Ray had named him as beneficiary of $75,000. Not a fortune, but enough for a down payment on a small house. Enough to finish the motorcycle, enough to feel like one adult in his life had chosen him on purpose. Daniel did not tell many people. He told Susan because she was his mother. He told Greg because Greg asked directly. He told Megan because she was sitting at the table when the conversation happened. Megan stared at the number. "That is a lot for one person who does not even have kids," she said. Daniel looked at her. The worst part was not the sentence. It was how normal it sounded in her mouth. Susan did not ask Daniel privately. She invited him to Sunday dinner. That should have warned him. Megan's children were in the living room with cartoons playing too loud. Megan sat at the table with red eyes. Greg had a folder beside his plate. Susan had not served dinner yet. In that house, food usually came before hard conversations, unless the conversation was meant to make someone lose his appetite. Greg opened the folder. "Megan is behind on the house." Daniel looked at Megan. "How far behind?" Megan wiped her face. "Enough." Susan reached for Megan's hand. Greg pushed the papers closer to Daniel. The mortgage company gave her 10 days. Daniel read the top page quickly. It looked official. It looked urgent. He was still grieving Ray, and his parents knew exactly where to press. Susan said, "Ray left you money at the right time." Daniel's throat tightened. "Ray left that money to me." Susan's eyes sharpened. "And what are you going to do with it? Let it sit in an account while your sister's children lose their home." There it was. Not a question, a verdict. Megan's children were the emergency. Daniel's future was the solution. Greg said Megan's divorce settlement would reimburse him soon. Megan nodded. "It is just temporary, I swear." Daniel did not agree that night. Not completely. He only said he would go to the bank in the morning and hear what could be done. Nobody liked that answer, but they accepted it because they thought the hard part was already over. The next morning, the emergency looked more official. Susan drove Megan. Greg drove Daniel. At the bank, a woman in a navy blazer led them into a small office with glass walls. Daniel hated that part. Everyone could see Megan wiping her eyes. Everyone could see Susan sitting close to her daughter. Everyone could see Daniel sitting across from them, like he was the only thing standing between children and homelessness. The bank employee asked who the cashier's checks would be made out to. Greg answered too quickly. "One to the mortgage servicer, one to Megan for legal and moving costs." Daniel looked at him. Megan said the settlement was coming. "It is," Megan said, but her voice was thinner now. The bank employee turned to Daniel. "Mr. Reed, these funds are yours. I need you to confirm that you are authorizing both cashier's checks." Daniel looked at the forms. Ray's money, his name, his signature line. For a moment, he wanted to stand up and walk out. Then Megan's phone lit up with one of her kids calling from the waiting area. Megan looked at the screen and started crying again. Susan whispered, "Please, Daniel, don't make this harder than it already is." Daniel picked up the pen, but before he signed, he said, "I want it written down that this is temporary." The room changed. Megan stopped crying. Greg's jaw tightened. Susan looked offended. "Daniel," she said, "we are your family." Daniel did not look at her. "I want it written down." The bank employee paused, then pulled a blank repayment acknowledgment form from a drawer. "This is not a loan agreement prepared by an attorney," she said. "But all parties can sign an acknowledgment of repayment intent. For anything more formal, you should speak with a lawyer." Greg said that was unnecessary. Daniel said nothing. He just waited. Finally, Megan signed. Greg signed as witness. Susan initialed the repayment line because she was the one who kept saying the settlement would cover it. Only then did Daniel sign for the cashier's checks. One check went to the mortgage servicer. The second went to Megan for the legal and moving emergency they claimed could not wait. When the bank employee stamped the paperwork, Daniel flinched at the sound. It felt too final. As they walked out, Susan hugged Megan first. Greg put a hand on Megan's shoulder. Megan whispered, "Thank you." Daniel stood beside them with the bank receipt in his hand. No one hugged him. No one asked if he was okay. No one mentioned Ray. The first week passed, then the second. Megan stopped mentioning the settlement. When Daniel asked, Susan said he was making things ugly. Greg said lawyers were slow. Megan said he was acting like she had stolen from him. That was when Daniel called his own attorney. He did not bring rumors. He brought copies, the mortgage notice, the cashier's check receipts, the repayment acknowledgment, the bank memo. The attorney read quietly for several minutes. Then he stopped at the foreclosure notice. "Daniel," he said, "this notice is 6 months old." Daniel blinked. "What?" The lender had already approved a payment plan before that dinner. This was not a 10-day deadline. Daniel felt the room tilt. The cartoons in the living room, Megan's red eyes, Greg's folder, Susan's question about the children losing their home. It all came back at once. The attorney turned to the repayment acknowledgement. "This helps you," he said. "They signed it as a temporary repayment, not a gift." Daniel stared at the signatures. Megan, Greg, Susan. The people who had acted hurt that he wanted proof had given him proof anyway. Then the attorney opened a copy of Ray's garage ledger. Daniel had brought it because some receipts were tucked inside. Near the back, Ray had written a line under Megan's name. Megan asked again, told her no. She does not need Daniel's future. She needs to stop spending his. Daniel read the line twice. His eyes burned. Ray had not left a speech. He had left records. And the records said what Daniel had been too tired to say. Megan had come for Ray's money before. Ray had said no. So after Ray died, they came to Daniel instead. Not because Ray would have wanted it, because Ray was no longer there to stop them. Daniel did not yell when he confronted them. That surprised even him. He met Susan, Greg, and Megan at the kitchen table, where they had staged the emergency. Same table, same chairs. No cartoons in the living room this time. He placed 3 copies on the wood. The old notice, the repayment acknowledgement, the ledger page. Megan went pale first. Greg said, "You went to a lawyer." Daniel looked at him. "You gave me paperwork. I had someone read it." Susan whispered that family did not do this to family. Daniel almost laughed, not because it was funny, because he had heard that sentence every time family meant him paying the cost. He looked at his mother and said, "You knew Ray had already said no to her." Susan did not answer. That silence ended something. The attorney sent a demand letter the next morning. Daniel did not get everything back at once. Some money had already been spent, but repayment started. Megan's settlement, when it finally came, no longer belonged entirely to her emergencies. Susan stopped calling for a while. Greg sent one message. This could have stayed inside the family. Daniel replied once. It did stay inside the family. That was the problem. Months later, Daniel used what he recovered to rent a small garage space outside town. He hung Ray's old wrench above the workbench. Then he rolled the unfinished motorcycle into the center of the room. For the first time, nobody asked him to sell it, delay it, lend it, or trade it for Megan's latest crisis. He turned the key. The engine coughed. Then it caught. Daniel sat on the concrete floor, with tears in his eyes, because it did not sound like money. It sounded like Saturday mornings, like Ray laughing at his own bad jokes, like the first piece of Daniel's life that nobody else got to spend. Daniel's family did not start using him that night. That night was only the moment he finally saw the whole pattern. For years, Megan's mistakes had been treated like weather. Unavoidable, unfair to question, something everyone else had to work around. Daniel's sacrifices were treated like furniture. Expected to be there, expected to hold weight, expected not to complain. But Ray had seen the truth, and in the end, Daniel did not need revenge. He needed one clean sentence, no more. No more paying for emergencies that were planned before he arrived. No more giving up pieces of his future so Megan could be praised for surviving the mess Daniel cleaned. So now I want to ask you, if you were Daniel, would you ever trust another family emergency again? Or would you finally stop letting other people's panic decide the price of your future?